we're live. It is I, Jill, again. I will be much more serious and composed this time. I guess there were some concerns about the quality of my voice. Here we go, I lost it already. Mike Ferry. So we had a wonderful screening of our sequel, A Flash of Beauty, Paranormal Bigfoot Tonight, hosted by Selkirk Sasquatch Events. Bill.
Hi, everybody.
Bill.
Bill and Susie have been tremendous hosts and put together a fantastic screening. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the events you have coming up and like all the cool stuff going on in Medellin Falls?
Well, for first, it was really great to have the Flash of Beauty people come up that made the movie, and they've been up here twice now. And it's been terrific, great dinner, great people with questions and everything. And this summer, we're having a Bigfoot festival up here, so I got in contact with the Florida skunk ape people down there. So we're going to be having 3 of them come up here. It'll be Mike Aguilar, Maria Dumont, and David Shealy. So, 3 fantastic people from down south. So we get to hear a little bit about what's going on with Bigfoot in Florida in that way. So it'll be cool. We get to hear each other up here, so I thought maybe somebody from way down there would be, talk a little bit more about alligators and snakes and, being out in the swamp and stuff. And, those guys, they wear snake boots everywhere they go, We come up here armed for cougars and bears and stuff, but they're a little different down there. So anyway, thanks a lot for having me up tonight.
Thanks for having us. And yeah, that's gonna be a lot of fun. Marie, she's fun. She's fun. We've met at Phenomenon. We're Facebook friends, and it's gonna be a good show for sure.
I hope I pronounced her name correctly, Dumont.
Look, something I've learned back from going back 20 some plus years in my telemarketing days at a comedy club. If you say anyone's name with an exotic, like a French accent or Italian, if you make it sound exotic, everything sounds great.
Okay.
So just French it up. That's what I do.
It's not
Parlez-vous
Applebee's.
français?
If it's not Applebee's, it's a Playbase.
Right.
It's not Target. It's
Target, the
Yeah.
Ronier. I
Right.
only drink the finest Ronier. Also with us, special guest, ex-lawman Rich Germeau, and he will wax poetic on some exciting things going on. But we also have Brett Eichenberger in the chat. We got Michael Ferry.
Hey there.
We're going to do our 70s show thing. Tobe, of course. Simeon.
Hey guys.
There was Brett over.
Oh, look at the That's so sad looking over in the corner. He's in tiny help.
That's right. I'm right here.
So Tobe, take it away.
All right, so, through the grace of God, we have a beautiful Airbnb. Through the literal grace of God, we got a beautiful Airbnb. And we just got done with a screening down the way at a historic school.
Cutter Theater.
The Cutter Theater, which used to be a historic school. It's actually a multiracial school back in the 1900s, which was fascinating. I saw Asian students. That was incredible. Rich is going to be staying in the haunted guest bedroom downstairs. He doesn't know it yet that we just found an outdoor lock that's going to lock him in. So we don't know the fishiness that happens down there. He's going to experience it. It could be a live stream with Rich, screaming tonight for his life. So we're just going to keep. We're going to keep going. If you go to my Facebook page, I think it's under Tobe Johnson. We actually did a live stream of Simeon, on stage through the Q&A and everybody else. So I think there's like a half hour worth of footage on Facebook if people want to see.
What is this room, 1408?
It's 1408 a haunted.
You know that movie?
Hmm.
Samuel L. Jackson, it's in a hotel. Nobody goes to room 1408.
Are there snakes involved?
Snakes on a plane.
It's like a portal to a different dimension.
I don't know.
Well, maybe
It's
that's
kind of crazy
downstairs.
downstairs. Rich is going to be down there. He's going to be the Zach Baggins tonight. So
Actually, it's a really nice place here.
look at it. It is downstairs a little funky. I won't lie, but up here it's awesome. So we had a good time, and we got to leave at 6 a.m, so we're gonna call it a night here shortly. So we're starting a little bit earlier than we do. And what do you have to say, Mike?
No, it was just a fun night. I mean, it was awesome crowd, tons of awesome comments and questions from the crowd. I think we were up there for close to 2 hours,
Yeah.
something like that. Probably longer than the movie actually played itself. So I think that's a success. And yeah, just awesome comments, awesome insight, and just a great crowd and a great dinner. So can't ask for much more than that.
Rich Jermo, can you comment on tonight's meal?
It was good. Prime rib.
Yeah.
Mine was pretty much alive. I asked for it though.
Did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So one of the best things about events like this is we get to interact with people with incredible stories who are eager to share. So I think I think all of us, we were all hearing some really amazing encounters and stuff. And I wish we could spend more time up here collecting them, but we'll definitely come back through. There was one gentleman who was like, "I'm ready to take people out to my spot right now. Who's game?" I'm like, "I need to get my prime rib."
Oh, really?
Yeah, but he came back and he gave information and stuff, contact info. So yeah, we're definitely trying to connect him with people who'll go out with him. You had a lengthy conversation.
Yeah, lots of. I totally agree with you, Jill. I think one of the best things about these conferences are the local stories. You're not going to find this at a national level conference. People don't want to share these stories to people they don't think are going to be receptive. And one gentleman we were talking with today, you and I were talking about this earlier, me 7 or 8 great Bigfoot stories, including seeing his friend disappear on a trail exactly at the moment where he heard ape-like whooping sounds behind him or chatter, ape-like sounds. And he said at that exact moment, his friend dematerialized. Well, it just wasn't there. And when the ape chatter stopped, he reappeared again.
Wow.
Yeah.
Things like this. So this is what he said, which is so classic. When I tell these stories to other people around here, they go, "Oh, come on, stop kidding us." And he stopped talking to people about it because he says people don't believe you. And I said, "Well, you came to the right place today because we believe you, right? We've heard this sort of thing before." And so that's the best thing about these, for me, is talking with local people and letting them tell their stories when they don't feel comfortable telling them to their neighbors,
Yeah.
right?
No.
Toby, you hear any good stories today? Did you have any moments?
You know, I thought the Q&A was the best moment. I've never done a live Q&A for almost an hour and a half. I think it was about an hour, 90-minute Q&A. It was the longest Q&A, but it was productive. And bouncing around with all of us, I thought was super awesome. Again, Simeon, I think you're such an important voice for this conversation. And eventually, we're not going to be able to keep you around because other people are going to catch on, and they're going to want you to be a part of their story as well.
No!
I know, they're going to take him.
No, guys, we've got an exclusive contract.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it's the fuzzy handcuffs, right? And the deal. So I'm kidding, guys.
No, but I can't remember all the particulars we went through. I mean, we talked about some really cool stuff. We talked about
Electrical pyramids.
we talked about
yeah.
pyramids. We talked about how
Great questions from the audience.
how sounds beyond Sasquatch vocalizations are part of attributes of having activity, including these car door slams. And then of course after things slowed down, I showed Simeon some video of these Brazilian workers going through a tunnel, and how the tunnel was turning into kind of wormhole, and it has this kind of owl moon sound, right, which is like this car door slammy sliding sound. And I just want to dig in a little bit more because you've had time to think about this a little bit. As far as you called these sounds what yesterday? You said you made up a term.
I was thinking about, we have coherent light, we call
Yeah.
it a laser.
Yeah.
We have coherent microwaves, masers, which preceded lasers historically. And it's something you see in if you look up atmospheric masers, you'll see this glowing orb-like ball lightning naturally happening in different planets in our solar system, and those are natural coherent microwave radiation called masers.
Okay.
So before our lasers were masers, so what if we have coherent sound? What if these Sasquatch are capable of projecting energy in a specific direction? Because we heard it again from some of our people we talked to,
Yeah.
that they heard these sounds, and people over there said, I didn't hear anything. They go over to the next house or trailer, it was really loud. So we call it coherent sound.
Okay, I love it.
And it just occurred, so I looked it up, and there is such a thing, and it's when the sound waves are aligned, and it keeps building and building in amplitude. They're just coherently aligned, just like a laser. So you think of a laser, it's light that you can point directionally, because it's all in phase. It's polarized in a single way, and it just points. In contrast to light that we're used to from light bulbs, which spreads out in all directions, which is sort of more incoherent. So the sound would be the same thing. So, I think we were talking about yesterday is, are the Sasquatch capable of projecting energy in a directed way so that it hits an intended target, you? Because even today, the people we were talking to said, I don't think it actually was like a sound, it was like projected at me. So we were just talking about this, and I don't know if this is what they do, and we're all speculating here. Till we have the Sasquatch show up and tell us how they're doing this, some of them do speak passable English. We should ask them how they do this. Why don't we do
Sasquatch,
that?
you're right here. You're invisible. Tell us.
How do you do this? No, because this. So anyway, that's what we're talking about, Tubbs.
Okay.
Sort of, and we were talking about that in terms of frequency and the primitivity conversation, inherent blurriness of Sasquatch and paranormal phenomena, which we've learned from Russian researchers generating artificial ball lightning in a lab would say that it was always blurry. The photographs would never come out in a clear way. Even in your movie, all of those excellent images of ball lightning, they're all slightly blurry. And these Russian researchers, Shakparanov and others, who were capable of generating this right in the lab with Mobius strips, by the way.
Oh, here we
These
go.
Escher-like Mobius. Yeah, they got them to collide the energy together in a certain way that it generated ball lightning. They said it was inherently. So what we've been exploring this, over the weekend here, is the idea that paranormal phenomena as a whole are inherently blurry. For that reason.
I want to bring it back to Rich, though, too. Rich, you brought up something I thought was cool. You were talking about how these areas are devoid of sound, and in the Almed, we call these vacuum areas where it sounds nothing is there, right? Sound is vacuumed out. There's an absence of birds, but there's this pressure that seems to develop around you, right? Like a denseness.
It seems
The
to be
air
all,
becomes
seems to be
dense.
all around at times.
Yeah.
The whole environment.
So were you attributing that to almost like an oppressive spiritual thing?
I wouldn't say it's oppressive, but it's like an emptiness almost, right? There's like nothing there. It feels like that it's a void. Like it's so foreign to you that it gives you this strange feeling of it's an unknown. So it doesn't. I guess there's probably a subconscious element of fear involved in it, because it's just like something that it's all around you, but it's touching you at the same time, because you're a part of it, you're feeling it, and it's an altered state of your environment. I guess you could say it that way, but you don't really know what it is. So,
but there's no context. There's no way to compare it to anything.
no, it's not. It's not positive or negative. I wouldn't say, but like I said, everything. It seems to make everything change. Everything has a behavioral change as a result of it around you.
It reminds me of being in the water, and if space exists, which you question, if you're in a pressurized system, that's what it reminds me of. But going to what you're looking into, Simeon,
Right.
How can we?
That
how
would
can we
be
talk about
the
that?
inverse image of the coherent sound, is a sound vacuum. And by the way, this has been experienced by people around ball lightning. Not only did, in this recent account I've been reading about, the people said that not only did the crickets stop chirping, the waves stopped waving.
Oh,
At least they couldn't hear them. So as far as we know, waves are not afraid of ball lightning. And I don't think insects are afraid of Sasquatch. It's always been my view. It's not a fear response to quiet down because the predators are.
Oh,
I
really?
don't think the crickets.
okay.
I could be wrong. I think what it is that there's this. There is a EM effect which is dampening the sound waves, or
Okay.
other people suggested noise canceling effect.
I was gonna say that maybe the environment changed so the sound can't travel.
That's what we're thinking. And so this is the cool thing about it. Cryptids can do this too. But I would imagine, just like everything else they seem to do, it's intentional. It's a way for them to gain a short-term advantage in the environment over you, the lowly human, right? By dampening all sorts of fields, your sensory systems are off, right? You're immediately getting uneasy, starting to make mistakes. I don't know. That's just my personal view. And I'm nothing bad against cryptids. I just think that's their behavior in my experience from, yeah, good.
So,
From the Peanut Gallery, Brett Eichenberger.
okay, so someone in the chat, Steve Hepworth, just said Sasquatch use bioelectric static, aka infrasound, is produced. I can't read it. Sorry. Sasquatch use bioelectric static, aka infrasound. Bioelectric static is produced through the ingestion of quartz and other materials.
Rubidium.
What do you think about that, guys? Have you ever heard that
Don't
before?
take it away.
All right, so.
If you could repeat that too, so the audience can hear.
All right, so Brett was just relating a comment on here that Sasquatch basically changed their frequency by ingesting minerals, in this case quartz. What's interesting about that is you read a book by a gal named Pearl Parada. It's called Manotang. And Pearl has an interesting background. She won't go into it as much as I'd like her to, but she was attached to some three-letter agencies. While she was homeless on the Carbon River, she experienced Bigfoot activity in the proximity of Auden Williams' story, from mysterious encounters to her mother, Sally Shepard Wilford, listed in the book Valley of the Skookum. Go read it. Living on the Carbon River.
Carbon River? Okay.
Yeah. So while she was homeless, Pearl, we're going back to Pearl now, circa 1980 something, she starts finding Sasquatch sign. And upon the area known as Whale Rock in that general proximity, which is this mysterious rock with this ancient glyph no one can identify. I think it's been stolen actually. Pearl found milled rubidium on the rocks. Something had made a pestle and started grinding in this remote area rubidium, which I think is element 37. I don't know. Anyway, rubidium has some really interesting qualities as it relates to cloaking tech.
Yeah, metamaterials.
Metamaterials.
Conductivity.
And
Interesting.
So
Special material.
her instinct was, when she found this milled rubidium, was to taste it. She goes, I was a scientist, I knew better. She goes, but my instinct was to taste this stuff. Now it's dangerous to ingest, right? Yeah, it's probably not a good idea. Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Anyway,
high up on the periodic table.
she started to, and when she started to look into this and send the samples off to friends at labs at Los Alamos, things got interesting for her personally. She started to get visits at the, black helicopter kind of deals, showing up at her house, threats. Her phone got tapped. Very kind of Henry Franzoni kind of stuff happening. And she will not talk about it. Like, I've tried to get her on a show with us. I tried to get her in the doc. She sent me a pack of paperwork, and that's pretty much all she'll do. So the only reason I'm mentioning her name is she wrote it in her book Manatang, but what's up with rubidium, and you seem kind of interested in that.
Yeah, rubidium keeps coming up in these articles you read about metamaterials. Metamaterials are these very fine-grained, man-made materials that allow you to change a wave. They're like waveguides, and they can change frequencies, and they're used in materials. Cloaking is an example. Metamaterials are something it's a very important area of research. I mean, there's all that speculation about the Nimitz Tic Tac using metamaterials on the surfaces and so forth. So those materials again would be used, rubidium and materials like that. They're associated with superconductivity.
Okay.
And that's just a whole nother type of energy flow when the resistance goes down. I mean, superconductivity is something that science has been attempting to achieve at room temperature for a long time, because if our devices using rubidium or whatever, if they were able to be superconductors, the batteries would last for like 800 years because there'd be no heat dispersion, which is a lot of where the battery energy goes, is into wasted energy, because normally the electrons are just bouncing around in the metals and they're losing a lot of energy. So with superconductivity, you get this near perfect conductivity, and it's the key to making, batteries that last 100 times longer than we've got. But we haven't been able to do it at room temperature, or have we? Because if you look into a lot of, special access programs, OSAP, government UFO programs, this keeps coming up over and over again. Metamaterials, topological insulators, same sort of thing, superconductivity. So it's a hot area in material sciences to develop these next generation materials that allow all of our electronics to work much, much more efficiently, reduce power consumption. But again, going back to the ultimate Dr. Hein thesis, would it be surprising is that there are biological organisms already doing this out in nature, and we're actually playing catch up? I mean, we can't prove it, but you wouldn't be surprised. Just like you show in the film, the cuttlefish and other examples of cloaking animals that already know how to do this, right? And octopus and creatures like this. Would it be surprising that there's a land creature that just instinctively, for whatever reason, knows about certain minerals that give it these pretty incredible cloaking abilities? I think we'd have to
Would
admit.
they even need it though? Like, would
Well,
they
it wouldn't
ingest
hurt.
Would they rub it on
It's
their
good
hair?
que-
Would they have
good
like
question.
microfibers? Would they have something similar to what the polar bear has, as far as these hollowed out hairs?
Yeah, those are very similar to metamaterials. I was mentioning to you the Morphos butterfly.
Yes.
The audience can look it up right now. It's the deepest blue that anyone's ever seen, as far as I know, in any organism. Insect, mammalian, amphibian, is the Morphos butterfly blue. But we were talking about this last night. It's not a pigment in the butterfly's wings. It's metamaterials. The way that the little wing particles are shaped refracts light and only emits the deep, deep blue that we see on the butterfly wings.
amazing.
So the insects are doing this. So I guess what we're wondering, folks, is do Sasquatch and cryptids somehow, are they using something like that, or is it even deeper, where it's some sort of frequency energetic shift? But it certainly wouldn't hurt to have the right minerals on your side that would enable you to create those frequency changes, would it? So it's definitely a good question, isn't it?
I think it's fascinating.
I'll say something.
We have a lot of questions and not quite the answer.
I have a weird idea that I want to see what people think.
Okay.
It may be related to the non-existence of Sasquatch bodies, bones, and it may be an explanation possibly for missing people. Remember I was talking to you related to those things called Beyuls, Beyuls. I was talking to Simeon today about it because, okay, you think about it like this. Okay, these Beyuls, these are something that is documented in Tibetan Buddhism, where they believe that there's certain places in the Himalayas, but they could exist anywhere, where two worlds overlap, like the spirit world and the physical world. And there are entrances into these places that are guarded by deities, right? And deities could take the form of snow leopards, storms, other type of natural phenomenon to, to push people away or to, mislead them from an entrance, right? Well, what if, for instance, that Sasquatch are indeed these gatekeepers for this, or these deities that potentially guard the entrances to these places, and that they can exist in, this world and the world that they're from, right? And what happens, if potentially people can wander into these places by accident, right? And what happens if, so this is a parallel realm, right? It's not this place, it's another place. And Sasquatches are here, but they are from another place potentially, right? So if they perish here or we perish there, your matter can't stay in that place. It has to be returned to here because this is where it's from, and it's part of this world, right? And it's a forever part of this world, right? It just changes into different forms. So these circumstances where people disappear, right, and they do searches and they don't locate bodies, right? But then all of a sudden, bones and apparel and clothing turns up in a location that's already been searched, right? And it's just there. What if in fact that it's being returned here because this is where it belongs, right? And then Sasquatch, if they die here, if they perish here, they just dematerialize and go back to where they're from.
Oh, gotcha.
Right, so the matter can't stay here. It has to return to where it's from because it's part of that realm. It's part of that world. It's not from here, so it can't incorporate that. Their matter can't incorporate here, and our matter can't incorporate there, wherever this place is. It has to be returned back to here.
It's like the Shroud of Turin that you're describing. It's a transmutation or a light body transaction, lost and found kind of deal.
Yeah.
There was a story too that I don't know if Brett can bounce off this as well, but who was bringing up that there was a Sasquatch found with no bones in it?
Brett Eichenberger, take it away.
Yeah, no.
Can we talk about that?
We can't talk about that as much. Neil talked about that.
Oh.
I don't know if we
We can talk about that.
Can I just interject something I just want to say? So this kind of happened during our Q&A today, and if people in the chat know how to handle this, please share with me because I don't know the etiquette. We've had people share things with us that they want us to share, but during the Q&A, I started sharing a story that was shared with us after the cameras rolled, only because they forgot to talk about it. But Tobe, I looked to you, and you're like, I don't know. Did you was I not supposed to be talking about that incident?
Which part? What are you talking about?
The portal.
The
Barbs.
Barb shoot.
Oh, I never heard that she saw a different dimension.
Oh,
now,
okay.
I heard from other people like Adam Davies that they saw guardians of a portal going to a hellscape, not Shangri-La, which I think you're trying to describe.
Well, I think Shangri-La is possibly part of it. Maybe I've heard that the entrance to Shangri-La is guarded by Sasquatch-like beings.
But, Adam Davies is describing a hellscape along with John Carlson, and they're having Sasquatch activity in southern Oregon, and they're seeing another land in this blackness. They're seeing red trees, red mountains. They're seeing little black demons, right? And Barb Shoup is describing what?
Well, she was looking in like a 1940s living room scene. It looked like a Christmas portrait.
So
guess.
I felt when she was talking, I felt like she was like looking at something she wasn't supposed to, like something like a window open. And
Yeah.
it was like,
in her
shit,
tent.
I'm looking at.
It was very
Well, look,
voyeuristic.
here's
it's very
the
voyeur.
reason I'm bringing it up. It's not because I'm not trying to get into like a portal discussion and blah 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 blah. But we can circle back to that. But no, the point I want to make is that sometimes with great paranormal, supernatural, natural world stories and encounters comes great responsibility, and how you handle these stories and share them. And so. No, I'm just saying, it's like, I don't know when, basically what I'm trying to say is we've had a lot of stories come to us that we're like, oh, and we just have to, like Arla Williams says in our sequel at the end, if you haven't seen it, here's a spoiler. She's like, file it away. Mm-hmm. It may not mean anything to you at the moment, just file it away. Because we're trying to figure out, how do we release this story? Because people are like, tell everyone what happened to me. And it's like, people may not be ready for what happened to you. And we have to figure out the most responsible way to share stories. I guess there is a responsibility, I think.
Yeah.
So I just want to throw that
You know what Stanton Friedman called that? What our Arla called file it away? Stanton Friedman called it the gray box.
Oh, the great ones.
And this is from the UFO world. And I saw him lecture many times. He passed away a few years ago. And he was certainly one of our best researchers, and he studied Roswell. He gave us a lot of good reports on all of his research into Roswell. And he said a lot of these stories, you just don't know. Someone will tell you something. And he said, it just goes into my gray box, which means you don't invest one way or another. It's just there to pull out if you need it at a future time. I think that's I use the gray box today. Thank you, Stanton. I use the gray box every day because I hear so many stories, and I don't know, but it could be real, so it goes in the gray zone.
And it's not that I'm questioning, like,
No.
I believe them, but it's just kind of like, there's like a,
It's only so much.
I don't want to say like, oh, well, we have our own disclosure program going on. It's just like, how do you, some of the things that in the last few months that we've been privy to in some conversations, it's like, oh, this is complicated. How do we share?
I
Like
think you
that.
just tell the story and then let the audience take it for what it is. I mean, whoever's telling the story has the ultimate control over the message, and it's up to us as an audience to decide, well, I'll take that for face value. I won't take that. It's completely objective.
He brought up Roswell. I just want to mention this, it's not in any context, but they're 19 miles northeast of Roswell is a town called Portello, New Mexico, which means portal.
Oh, yeah.
It's called Portello. And there happens to be an Air Force base there, and there was a major UFO incident there in 1972.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't heard about
The town's named Portello. And there's, in
I've
fact,
never heard about the
quite a few
Portellos.
different towns named Portello. In fact, there's a town named Portello that's on the same latitude as Tampa, Florida. It's just on the other side of the state. It's
Well, I
called
want to
Portello.
live in
Isn't
a
that where
Portello.
SOCOM, isn't that where SOCOM is in Tampa?
Yep, Tampa is
Okay.
where SOCOM Central Command is.
Yeah.
Mhm. And there's a town named Portello that's on the same latitude right across the state from it.
And the Portello mushrooms are delicious.
Did any of you see that?
Portobello.
No, that
There
joke
was a
didn't
photograph.
land.
There
Okay.
was a
Yeah,
photograph
I know.
of just a night scene
Womp womp.
on a highway, but it was a night scene on a highway. I just saw this. I don't know where I saw it online, but it was dark. It was night, and everything's black. The sky's black, but there's this box that's daylight cut out of it.
I
It's like
posted
you're
it on Facebook.
Maybe I saw it from you,
Yeah, probably.
but
I
that
think
was
you saw it.
fascinating. I was just like,
It's like somebody pulled
It's
up
like-
a shade,
yes.
and it's like a whole different daylight scene in the nighttime.
I mean, you can see texture. You can see clouds. You can
Yeah.
see everything you can't see in a night sky. It was
Could have been fake.
wow.
Let me ask Simeon this question here. Highlighted in the YouTube videos is my girlfriend Erin. She wasn't in the doc, but she made the YouTube cut. Simeon, she described seeing, and maybe you listened to Erin's interview, seeing a green Sasquatch.
Yes, you told me about that.
Okay, so this is a thing that has seemingly been isolated to the Olympic Peninsula.
Yeah, fascinating, huh?
And so the Olympic Project in particular has been thinking this is an issue of light filtering through the forest canopy. Now, Aaron and Randy Chase of Silver Star Bigfoot, the guy that took the photo, have seen green Bigfoot.
Right.
They call it Mosquatch.
Mosquatch, yeah.
So
I
what
think
what would be causing that?
I think about Aaron's Mosquatch frequently, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, I still think about it because we were talking in Vernal and I just asked her some of her experience. She talked about Mossman leaping across the road, almost the entire road, if I'm not mistaken, in a single leap, just short of the ditch on the other side.
Do you remember it?
Yeah, I remember this because she looked up, as she said, local literature from Native Americans there, and they talked about Mosquatch. So they had seen Mosquatch too, and their feeling about it was, if I remember it correctly, that it was an adaptation to mossy trees for camouflage purposes.
Ooh, good point.
So if you were to be the Squatch and your whole back is covered with moss, and why not? There are certain animals that have certain symbiotic relationship with fungi for different reasons. We have our own microbiome, right? For a life like that has a relationship with higher life forms like us, more complex forms, we should say. Why not have a Squatch that has some sort of adaptation in their hair to have a green moss? Because she said it could hug a tree and then it would be almost totally camouflaged. You know, the green idea of the green explanation for things, that it's light diffusion, that is what's been used for tornadoes. The reason you get that green before the tornado, or you talk to people, I actually got to speak to someone who had been inside a tornado. I was calling my phone company and I got a phone center in Missouri So I had to ask about Squatch. Anytime I get people in the call center in Missouri, I ask them about their feelings about Bigfoot, since Missouri has all sorts of Missouri monsters down different places. And so I didn't get a Squatch story, I got a tornado story, and she had been in the middle of a Category 5 tornado and survived, one of the few people. And she described what it's like to be at the epicenter of a tornado. She said everything turned green.
Really?
Now, the simian explanation for this, going with coherent matter, is that's an electromagnetic effect, because you also get plasmas and plasmoids in the center of tornadoes and strange electrical effects. But people for a long time have said, oh, that's just reflecting the green of the prairie and the light. And I just don't buy this, because she's in the middle of it and it's still looking green all around her, and she's in the middle of a town. There's no grass around there.
What about?
Can I say something really quick?
So
just on
I
that
think
note,
that
just on the earthquake note.
What's causing
And
it?
No, go ahead. I think the Squatch is the moss effect. Good. The moss effect.
Speaking of moss and tornadoes, no, so Brett and I used to live out in Washington D.C. and I remember tornado, like when the tornadoes were forming, and us being from Oregon, we're like, why is the cloud coming down in a V? Huh, that's weird, but the sky would be green. But I remember one time I had to pick him up at Reagan National. I don't know where he was coming or going from, but we were under tornado watch, and the torrential downpour of the hail, everything was green. The sky, I was like, oh, this is not right. And I'll just keep going driving, but no, everything was green and eerie and charged. There was everything felt charged, and like when you're in the Al Moon lab,
You felt
weird
that charge.
stuff
You
was
see
happening. It's all coming full circle.
You see that at the coast, like on a sunset. When you have a cloudless sky, you have a sunset, and you'll get this green flash that goes across the horizon. I mean, is that somewhat related to that? I don't know.
Those are sea squatches.
But no, Erin described tendrils. She's describing seeing a mane coming off the back of it as it leaped off. Do you want to show that photo?
No, I want to show this picture from ball lightning.
Okay.
Cold fusion researcher Dr. Takeaki Matsumoto, who passed away last year, excellent researcher. And he considered this ball lightning to be a form of micro tornadoes. Those micro ball lightning is in a tornadic form, and he had pictures of it. He pictures of these. So those of us that think of this sort of fractal self-similarity between large events and small events see the large tornadoes that you're talking about as a bigger version of these micro tornadoes. And this is why you get that green effect. It's sort of an electrostatic effect. It's the way that light is refracted through that type of structure. And again, this witness from Missouri, I'm not telling her anything. She said everything turned green. It wasn't, her whole field of vision turned green. And she's in the tornado. So that leads me to think it's not just reflecting the prairie. It's an electromagnetic effect. And you're saying you felt a static charge. I just want to tell people one thing. If you go online, you can look up, there's a paper, I forget the author, about electromagnetic basis of tornadoes. This meteorologist is arguing that our explanation of tornadoes being like a big Hoover vacuum cleaner is wrong. It's not just a vacuum effect, it's an electrostatic effect, which meteorology has not gotten right to. Go ahead, Rich, you want to say something?
I was just saying, doesn't the Wizard of Oz, when Dorothy gets picked up by the tornado, isn't it green inside? And then she ends up with the little people, and the house falls on the witch.
Emerald City.
Emerald.
We're talking about emerald.
But I was going to say too, when I had the Harsine incident, that I could clearly see that there was debris stuck. It looked like sticks and moss or whatever, lichen, that was protruding out from the back. The Sasquatch was facing me, but I could clearly see that it looked like it had sticks stuck in the back of its hair, like camouflage.
Right.
Moss, sticks poking up out of the back. It was certainly attached to it. So I remember thinking that is it using debris to camouflage itself by sticking sticks and stuff in its
That
hair?
seems
The problem is that you go back to Native Americans, the macaw. If you watch season 2, episode 2, the one you were in, of Expedition Bigfoot. They go to second or third beach and they interview a macaw Native American who talks about seeing a Sasquatch take a position where it drops down on a knee. It brings its hand over its face, almost like it has a shield or something like that, and it cloaks itself. So, you know, what is it about having to position yourself in order to bring about a variable state like that?
It's like the Power Rangers.
Yes, right.
Yeah, it's a type of compression almost, isn't it? Kind of going into that position. I mean, a lot of people have witnessed this cloaking ability of Sasquatch. As I was mentioning, I was just talking to a witness at the Kalispell conference last year.
Okay.
And that witness saw the Sasquatch go, she said, digitized, pixelated. Igor Burtsev described this from his Russian witnesses. The Russian researcher Igor Burtsev described this at the Bailey Conference in Colorado a few years ago.
Really?
And it's amazing to hear witnesses from different continents describe the same curtain of light effect, sparkly effect, and they're gone. So this macaw idea, I need to watch this episode, but it sounds, you know, a lot of people have seen Sasquatch do this. And it's certainly a big scientific mystery. But again, going back to, you know, this discussion of electromagnetic effects, I mean, going to a lower permittivity environment, as we've been talking about, towards the direction of superconductivity, changing your local speed of light and so forth, you know, permittivity, permeability, in terms of speed of light. I mean, that would push it into a different realm where light wouldn't refract the same way it does to solid objects we're used to. And if they can do this intentionally, again, we need to get one here. We just need to get one here. And let's just get one of these squatches. You guys do squatches? Do you have a problem with this? I mean, seriously, we want to talk to you. We get them over here and ask them, how do you do this? Can you give a webinar?
Give like a 60-minute sit down.
Can you just give us a little seminar?
I mean, wouldn't it be fascinating? Just hear me out. Wouldn't it be fascinating if we crowdfunded a long-term rental property at the Almoon Lab for a guy like Simeon to study it actively? Like, people have to know, right? Like, before you guys were involved with Flash of Beauty, it was just Daryl and I in Cottage Grove trying to recruit a guy like you to rent the place or buy the place. We put it online as a paranormal hotspot. We advertised it as such at the behest of Cindy and Daryl. But this place is still active and it's still secluded.
Yes.
So this is a
We need to go
local
out there.
Skinwalker ranch. So,
Yes.
I mean, reach out. Like, if there's somebody here that has a means to be a daddy Warbucks or a mama Warbucks, and we can put a guy like Simeon, and we can do a live stream, right? Like, we can actually have a living laboratory where a guy like this can appreciate it in a whole new way. Like, we were rednecks. I'm a little truck driver out there, you know, throwing plaster and footprints. But these places exist and they deserve to be studied. Would you be interested in that?
Yeah, I would, because I mean, part of the reason we don't know about this is the stuff of classified special access programs in the Pentagon. We all know what's going on here. These double neg metamaterials, negative permittivity, negative permeability. And by the way, the Russian researchers found the same thing, that their permittivity went into negative numbers, which is just weird because in classical physics, it's just 0 and up, and it's normally at 1, and it gets bigger as you get to things that don't conduct any electricity at all. So you do some research online and you'll find a lot of papers from Defense Intelligence Agency, seminars that they've declassified about these materials and about the value of developing these metamaterials. We're talking about things that can cloak, things that can create invisibility and variable speed of light. So what I'm saying is it's in some sort of classified realm. It should be in the realm of public discussion, so those of us that are interested in understanding our world can have a more informed discussion. So it's just a little bit segmented off from our mainstream society. I think that's what we've been dealing with
Yeah.
ever since the Atomic Energy Act of 1954, which just classified a
Yeah.
lot of stuff.
I'm so glad you brought that up because
Section 51.
the
and all
DOE
the-
link to all this stuff, nobody
it's just-
knows.
They can just
I didn't know you
shut
couldn't-
the research down.
And
if
I didn't
they
know you
feel-
couldn't file a FOIA on DOE
Yeah,
stuff.
not
Okay.
that stuff, because they said it's exempt because it has such national security
Brings us
importance.
back to
This is what
Henry.
we're dealing with. We're dealing with creatures that know how to do all this, but somehow the people that could have been studying this and given us some information are kind of locked behind these black budget programs because it has defense significance. So all of us here are navigating this sort of empty zone. I mean, Rich is talking about this empty sound. It's like this zone. We're not getting the flow of information from scientists because they're getting sequestered, in my view, in these black budget programs, and then they can't talk about it again for how many decades, right?
Right.
So you guys,
It's overly compartmentalized.
Oh,
Yeah.
viewers have seen an orb or two over your head, Simeon.
Well, I've been experimenting in lowering my permittivity through cities meditation. You know those guys that could do the levitation from the Maharishi?
Oh, really?
Yeah, and if you do that, you can start generating your own orbs at home. So try this at home, guys.
So
just
what-
be careful with orbs
but
so you don't know what they're
as a
gonna do.
cameraman,
They're
what
like
is-
little gremlins. They're just gonna show up and they can be
Guys.
troublemakers. They can
Yeah.
be troublemakers.
Casey Jones just sent us a $2 thank you. So,
Casey,
Hey!
yeah,
Snickers money.
that was cool.
I gotta go
Okay,
back.
so Rich has something to say.
This is related to, Expedition Bigfoot interviewed the Macomb member down on Second or Third Beach, right? And you said that the Sasquatch took a position.
It had to take like a.
Thomas Seeley talked
It had
about
to take
that,
like an
yeah.
Avengers position.
Well,
like
maybe
a
the
drop
reason
and eat.
why is that it has to gather the energy from the ether in order to perform the function.
Oh.
Well, this goes to what I was bringing up yesterday. Whereas, do Sasquatch have to get to a location? Like we were talking about Fata Morgana. Do they
Yeah.
have to get to a location to gather up the steam, basically?
Environmental energy.
Yes. Yes. Geomancing.
Well, you do have the very last witnesses in your movie Paranormal Bigfoot. I mean, they're just seeing it and they say, "Why there?
Yeah.
Why
that
us?
crouched
Why
down
there?
there.
What are the
Yeah.
Had
odds?"
to crouch.
I don't want to give too much away because that's really for me, I could watch that scene over and over. Was it a Cody and Harold?
Well, and we were talking about why that happened, why were they able to see it. I don't want to give too much away, but
Just
maybe it got to a point where it was in that transformation moment and it was gathering enough energy.
I didn't even
There's
think
It
no
was in the
going back.
zone.
It's
But
it's in the
It's
zone.
I mean, in
It's
short-
the Squatch, guys. It's
Yeah.
the
Right.
Squatch zone.
Just that exactly that.
The Squatch
Drawing
zone.
But no, it had to
Yeah.
take a position in order
It's
to
yours.
gather up this moment, this unbelievable moment,
To
which
escape.
it caps it out, and it's very reminiscent of what this macaw discussed.
Maybe it takes effort on their part to absorb the energy they need to perform the work of magic that they want to perform.
But why? I mean,
They,
if they
well, they don't have it inherently, it's not in them, but they have access to it all around them.
Okay, can I jump in really quick? So, when we were getting ready to do this documentary, we were watching a lot of other stuff that was out there. Well, one, because the pandemic was going on, and we're like, let's watch all the cool stuff. We don't have time to. We were watching a documentary that was produced out of Canada, primarily, I think, is Vancouver Island, BC area. And there were some young men who were reporting a sighting where they saw a Sasquatch that was at a rock that had kind of a spiral engraving, and it was clawing at it, like, come on, universe, do your thing, let me in. Brett, do you remember that documentary we watched, the Canadian one, Vancouver Island?
Yeah, it's great.
But do you remember what I'm talking about? Hey, over there.
Yeah.
The whole thing, where just find it, because as usual, I'm butchering the whole story.
Guys, I want to add one thing. This is something from J. Rob Alley, his book Brushes with Bigfoot.
Yes.
I met him here last year at the Bigfoot event here in June, here in Medellin Falls. And I'd met him before in Forks.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So you read Brushes with Bigfoot. He has a story which backs up Jack in your movie about these transmorphing Bigfoot. I almost fell out of my chair when I read this story, and I guess I feel like I'm okay sharing it.
If it's in,
You need to read.
he
his
wrote
book.
it and published it, so let's share it.
You need to read it. He's got Raincoat Sasquatch and
Yeah,
Brushes with Bigfoot. I mean, he's just an excellent researcher. And these stories he has, these vignettes, he's got maps. He's got his own drawings. He's got these summaries at the front. It's everything you could want in a Squatch book. Yeah, and so he has this story that he said he didn't even believe in. When he first heard it, he filed it away in the gray zone, the gray box, because he just couldn't make sense of it. But he said, I'm going to include it for you, the reader. You can make your own mind. Just keep your skepticals on. It's literally what he says.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is the
sounds like
story. These folks are in a boat off the Vancouver area or BC, somewhere up there along the Pacific coast there. And they see a Sasquatch walking along the beach. And then they see a cloud mist briefly come over. And when the mist leaves, just a few seconds later, there's a sea otter there instead of a Sasquatch. Everyone on the boat saw the same thing. There was no sea otter there before. The Sasquatch just vanished. They said the sea otter went straight for the woods.
What?
Yeah, straight for the woods. It didn't hang out. It just felt like it kept going in the same direction.
Like whomping along.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, exactly. The same direction the Squatch had been going in. And they said they all felt, even though it didn't make sense. Think of Jack in your film.
Yeah.
He said it didn't make sense to him either, but it's what he saw. I won't give too much away. They felt that the Sasquatch morphed into a sea otter. Now, to me, that seems consistent with some of the Native American stories that we hear from time to time of them having this ability. So there you go. I mean, you had Jack in your movie talking about the deer, and here's other witnesses.
Harold and
I mean, I
Cody,
can't, guys, this is even beyond what I can explain
Can I
with
just-
coherent matter, but there you go.
I just want to add, here's another little bit of trivia. Dr. Robert J. Alley, great bagpipe player.
Oh, really?
Totally fantastic. At the Forks Festival, were you? Oh, yeah, the first year he had his bagpipes out. Oh,
Danny.
it was a treat. Tobe?
Can we talk about Sea Squatch?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think that's an important conversation. If you guys can talk about it, I don't know. I want you to.
Otterman. There's an Otterman in Alaska.
We don't have the Otterman reports personally, though. Do
Somebody just brought it up. Renee just brought it up.
Oh, hey, Renee. Renee, who was at our screening today.
Yeah,
Good to
he
see
can't
you
get
again.
enough of us, apparently.
Hey.
But what is it? Is it a guild?
Okay,
Sasquatch
so-
that comes out of the sea, like.
Okay, so we do have.
merman?
I want to be. I'm gonna give the Reader's Digest version of the story because I
Wait,
believe.
before you do, so here I want you to get to your point. But so I'm used to hearing about Sasquatch swimming from Whidbey Island to the Olympics, right? Like this is a thing. People have seen them on ferries. If you talk to David Ellis, bioacoustic researcher out of the Olympic Project, a friend of mine, Sasquatch having a tremendous lung capacity and are tremendous swimmers. There's a case where they are chasing a herd of elk. They're pushing elk to the side. There's a team of Sasquatch waiting for the elk so they can kill them. This is altogether different, what you guys are about to describe. This is a different subspecies.
We've heard from Henry Franzoni about
Oh, in
Sasquatch on the Columbia.
River, yeah.
Columbia River. Mer
Backstroking on the Columbia River.
Squatch. Someone in the chat's calling them mer squatches.
I like that.
Oh, that's so.
Okay.
It
So
almost sounds tropical.
Psycho Food is calling them mer squatches.
So yeah, I'm gonna give the shorter version because Brett, the Sea Squatch story? Is that a members only video you're cutting, or is it
Yeah,
Oh.
no, it will be released eventually to everyone.
But first for so members of the channel will have access first, and then it will go public. So this kind of lines up with Claire's story from Sasquatch Chronicles, and I don't need to tell you, we all know what I'm talking about when I say Claire's story. Okay. Yes, you do. Claire?
Her voice is on the intro at Sasquatch.
Oh,
And yes, Claire,
Yeah,
who was in northern, the Northern California coastal area.
She's a British woman, right?
She's British.
Oh,
she's like,
that's
you've
Claire.
talked to
Oh my
Claire.
God, she's inspired me to write Dark Matter. I thought
Yeah.
someone has to write a book about this.
Yeah.
Claire.
So we'll get to that in
You
just a minute.
know Claire.
But well, everyone knows her
Everyone
story off of
knows
Sasquatch
Claire.
Chronicles. But
Oh
so
my God, episode 515.
Yeah. I was gonna say you know the number because
My God, it's burned
Everyone
into
knows
my
it.
soul with
Okay.
their coming out with their lizard-like walk. Oh
So-
my God, Claire,
it's like the
you have to
squeeze
bring
stacks
up
from Land of
Claire.
the Lost.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no that.
But
Oh my
on
God,
that
let me-
note, so we have a story that we intended to include it in Paranormal Bigfoot, but we couldn't find the right angle on how to make it fit. But basically, a witness who was in kind of the same area where Claire had her encounter.
Yes.
She was with a friend, and they were going down. They were down at the beach at sunset, and they're looking up. So, what town? I
Carmel
want to say
Heights.
it was near Trinity, California. Trinity. Can you pull up a map and just humor me that there's a Trinity, California, Northern California, Humboldt County-ish
Yeah.
area? So.
Trinity River.
Okay, so basically, they went down like the steep walkway to the beach, and it's getting sunsetty, and they're like, "What's that?" And they're looking off in the I say distance, but it's close enough to be like, should we be concerned? What are we watching? And they're like, "Oh, on the rocks, it kind of or tide poolish area. It looks like an Irish wolfhound, like something." On all fours, but like bent over, kind of doing foraging tide pool things. And they're just like, they're really honed in on it. And then, as one does, the being stood up on its feet, and they're just like, well, an Irish wolfhound doesn't do that. So they're watching it and they're like, oh, this is not a dog. They're like, they're going through their checklist of what are we looking at? And it noticed them, it saw them watching it. And it just kind of did the casual, like, I don't see you, you don't see me. It kind of turned, and then it proceeded to walk into the ocean. I don't know if I don't even know if it swam or just descended or squatch paddled, what you would call it, but it disappeared. And you talk about the lung capacity.
Yeah, it was covered in seaweed too, right? Like, wasn't it like, or maybe I'm.
I don't remember. All I remember is like watching her facial reactions as she was retelling the story, because she's like, when it went into the water, enough time had gone by where as a mammal it should have popped up for air. But then you think about the lung capacity that you're talking about. Simeon, would you like to share anything about why they may have been able to be in the water longer? Do I need to keep spinning? This is where we get into like the
They
ethics.
have been known.
Okay, here we go.
You read some of Rusty Wilson's stories from Glacier and places like that from these park rangers who were attempting to avoid them, and they stay underwater for quite a long time. They do need to come up for air, but they have a huge lung capacity. The gills, yes, they have those too. This mime is this. They have some structure, air sacs. Well, now that you've mentioned Claire, when I was talking to Ron Moorhead about Claire, since he spoke to her once or twice, she described air sacs coming off of their necks, which.
Like bullfrogs, basically.
Yeah, so would seem that these squatch along the Sea Otter Reserve near Carmel, California, right below Carmel Heights, which is south of Carmel.
Okay.
If you've ever been out there, they had some adaptation. It seems that squatch that are around water might have some adaptation to staying underwater longer. I mean, I haven't heard that sort of air sac structure except from Claire's reports, but those were seafaring squatch. It definitely damages the ape argument because there are cases of apes swimming.
Yeah.
It's a myth that they don't like water. We've heard some researchers report, well, apes never swim. They do. It's just rare. It's just not their
Well, it's like, how much access do they have in
yeah,
the deep
it's
jungle
not their
to like
favorite
just dive
thing.
into
It's not
it?
their favorite thing.
Okay, like
But this-
rabbits love to swim. Well, no, they don't. They don't love to swim, but they can
will.
swim.
They will. So the squatch seem adapted to some of these water environments, and I would imagine they can stay underwater. This one case I'm thinking about in Kintla Lake in Glacier of this park ranger who had just, her friends had left and she decided to go for a swim, and one came out aggressively on the water there and she went deeper and it went deeper and she was just amazed that it didn't need to come up for air it didn't need to come up from air as often as she did. So
Hey, you guys.
Oh, is someone out of here?
Yeah, I'm gonna head on out of here. Thanks a
Wait,
lot.
some
everybody,
final
for-
words.
Fantastic day today. We learned a lot. Got a lot of interesting feedback, and you know, in order to find out information, you got to ask. And it's like today, you know, you guys put out the information. People are asking and bringing up information that you know you're not going to hear everywhere. You know, not on the general stuff. You know, and that's the neat part about this is being able to go out, do our research, you know, different people doing research and then all getting together and talking about it. So I'm just amazed, you know, amazed of all the stuff that we learn. You know, whether it be in the car doors shutting and stuff, I've heard that from other people, to, you know, portals, who knows, you know, if we don't talk with each other,
Right.
we don't learn, you know. That's a neat part about this. It's not just a show like on TV where they go, you hear that out there? You know, what's that? You know, no, we're doing a lot of stuff with investigations with people that wouldn't be normally talking about this stuff.
Tell you
So
something about portals. It doesn't seem like there seems to be many examples of people that walk through a porthole and then come back and tell the story. Do you have many eyewitness accounts of that? Have you heard of that, where people have actually gone through one?
Well, I mean, missing time. We don't know where
Yeah,
they've
but
gone.
they don't have any recollection of the event.
Yeah, they do if they go through a hypnosis, but that takes time and effort, and a lot of people don't do
Is
it.
there any documented cases of anybody who's given that testimony from hypnosis?
See you back
that
at the
says that
ranch.
I accidentally stumbled into one, or I saw one, I walked into it, existed there for a while, and then I came back.
Who told
Well-
the story today about watching somebody dematerialize on a trail and then come back? Was that news?
well, it's one of our listeners right now, one of our viewers. I guess you mentioned their names, but they shared a story with myself and with Jill about.
Oh, if Todd's listening,
It was.
tell us your story.
It wasn't. No, it was. It was some a local person here, and they shared that story. He was telling me it was 7 or 8 excellent stories. We're going to talk to him again in the future.
Oh, that
very
okay.
quick.
That was another dematerialization.
And it was another dematerialization.
We had a couple of stories of people disappearing and coming
Right?
back.
Was
Yeah.
that Todd? Was that Todd? I think it was Todd's. I
Well,
might
he
be
was out.
confusing
He
it.
was out there with a friend, and the friend
Quite incredible.
disappeared.
And we asked him. He said no, it was gone. He had a clear view, and
His friend disappeared when all the samurai chatter
Well,
started up.
So what was his friend's interpretation
Exactly.
of what happened?
Is he aware that
Is
he
he aware?
disappeared?
we
It
didn't
didn't-
ask. We forgot to ask that.
'Cause according to that friend, maybe nothing happened at all.
He didn't
Because that's space
report
travel.
anything.
Right.
It fits our idea that there was a modification of the electromagnetic field in some way. That's oversimplification. We're talking about another type of compacted electromagnetic energy that it's not typical. You're not going to measure this with your trifield meter, by the way.
Okay.
It's a compacted type, but
So
it's
take that.
Says you.
yeah. You hear that? You're not going to measure with your trifield
With your ectoplasm machine,
no, but we've used those in the crop circles. I'm
That's
saying
so
this to
clutch.
myself too, because we've gone out there in the crop circles and hey, how come we're not getting any reaction? Because it's sort of happening. Okay, I don't want to get too over people. It's more related to the Aronoff-Bohm effect. Look it up. It's another type of quantum electromagnetic non-local effect where things affect each other
What is
at a
that called
distance.
again?
Aronoff-Bohm.
Okay.
And it's the basis for RV,
Good luck
for
spelling this.
non-local communication with zero electromagnetic field. The trimeter is not going to pick it up. It's totally at another level, but it's measurable, and it was proven by Tanimura in '86. 36 years after Aronoff-Bohm, and other people proposed it 10 years before Aronoff-Bohm. 36 years later, a Japanese researcher proves that it's actually real, that completely empty empty force, empty electromagnetic field can affect a particle with nothing there, but it's in the quantum equations with the numbers for vector. It's called vector potential. Vector potential. Look it up. Guys, I know this sounds common, but this is what quantum mechanics tells us, and I do think it's somewhat cool that this level of quantum mechanics, we're not just talking quantum entanglement. We've all heard that a zillion times at conferences. Not just talking about entanglement, but there are these other quantum effects that have been proven to be real, and we're seeing them in some of these paranormal phenomena. I just think that's the coolest thing.
It is.
It's not just in classified special access programs, it's in paranormal phenomena.
Yeah.
Jill?
And,
Anyway, that's
okay,
enough science
so-
for tonight, but that
Okay.
Aronoff-Bohm effect, vector potential, look it
5
up,
minutes.
you'll see,
Let's
you'll
do a
find
5-minute
patents.
warning.
People
Okay.
have attempted to patent it, by the way, for communications. I'm just saying this, Tobe, just one thing. It's not all in classical electromagnetic. Those of you guys that like the tri-field meter, I'm having fun. We used them in the crop circles too. It seems that it's another level of
You
electromagnetic.
make it sound like a stud finder. It's actually a nice piece of
It's
equipment.
kind of like a stud finder.
So hey, you guys. So we're gonna be wrapping up soon, but I
It's a
do.
glorified stud finder. I admit it.
Yeah.
I know. Anyways, because it's a treat, we have Rich with us.
Yes.
So Rich, I do want to ask you. So since we filmed the documentaries, and would you quit playing wiggly jiggly with me? That was Tobe with the lazy Susan. But since we've done the documentaries, and since like your full interviews have come out, I'm curious if you want to share anything with the audience, like how your perspective has changed from when we last sat down with you on that hot summer 2020 day with your dog going crazy with the chipmunk in the tree and the bugs and all the air traffic overhead. How has your outlook and thoughts on the subject and just all things related changed or evolved? I guess evolved is the better term.
Well, yeah, like, I don't know that it's changed so much, but I mean, there is an evolution related to it just because that, I guess you could say that just in the ability to share the story more and to influence with it, I guess you could say, to where you start to, I guess like this. So it certainly has helped other people or incited other people to come forward. You know, every time that, you know, I saw this, I've seen this on a lot of different, you know, interviews of mine that have been released where it gives people an opportunity to relate to you, and it kind of pushes them a little bit because they can to divulge what their experience was, and you end up finding out that so many other people have had like a similar type experience, different but similar in many, you know, instances of it. It's not a all that rare of a thing, really. It's less rare than you would think it was. I think that it just takes more people, you know, having the guts to come out and you know, put themselves out there, you know, and tell something that's kind of crazy that is really true, that it gives other people strength, you know.
Yeah, courage is addictive, and that's what we're experiencing.
What words of advice do you have for someone who's had an experience that they feel is just too weird to share, or like it challenges their upbringing or their belief system? For someone who's been through from A to Z, you know, of all this all these experiences, what advice do you have for someone who doesn't know how to deal with what they've experienced?
I'd say this is that, to me in particular, I mean, I think that this experience in general of being able to be part of something like this, and even on your own, it's very self-empowering. Like it gives you a lot of strength, and the further that it goes, and the more that you just accept it and embrace it, it gives you a lot of confidence in order to go ahead and continue to tell it, you know, because you realize that the positive effect that it has related to collectively to everything and everybody, right? Because I think that these things happen to you because it wants to be told, right? It wants to be, that's the reason why it's happening to you. It's because it wants to use you as a conduit, right? To relay, to project that experience out, because I think that's how we're going to evolve in this thing, and how we're going to get to further ahead with it, is by people collectively together, you know, sharing this stuff, you know, to kind of ascend us to a higher level relatively to the whole thing.
Is there anything you would have done, looking back, is there anything you would have done differently?
You know, I don't think so, because I think that you're just going with it organically, and it's just flowing out how it's supposed to. It's not really you. You're not really in control of it. You are, but at the same time, you're compelled to communicate it, to project it out, to talk. And it all works out the way it's supposed to.
Absolutely.
Final thoughts, Mike.
No, it's just interesting listening to Rich, because it's like Sasquatch sets the ball rolling and you just react to it. And your story is a byproduct of the experience. I mean, you know,
It's
that's
a
how it
gateway
rolls.
drug, kind of.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it's, I mean, thank you for doing it, because it's like, we realize you're putting yourself on the line. Everybody who's talking to us is really putting themselves on the line, risking a lot talking to us. And it's just, you know, that courage, that's the way it spreads. So thanks.
Yeah, there's no downside to it.
No.
You know, there's definitely not a downside, because whatever people ridicule you, or the people that fall out of your circle, they were meant to anyways, right? They were meant to fall out of the circle. You just pushed them a little. You helped them go, right? Because they just aren't strong enough to accept that you're going to be truthful about it, right? I mean, I've had family, you know, that have ridiculed me, you know, tell me I'm an embarrassment and different things like that. And I'm like, well,
Me too.
how would I know? I'm as happy as a pig in shit. It doesn't really matter to me.
Yeah, I get it.
So,
That's like a Christmas card right there.
Every day.
Simeon, final words.
Yes. Well, you know, I think someone. Watch out for Tobe's tri-field meter. That's one thing I want to say. You know, I think it was Harold in Paranormal Bigfoot in the final couple minutes where he says, "I believe my experience over what I read in books." It's kind of what Rich just told us. You know, this whole universe, multiverse we live in, it's a lot bigger than anyone ever told us. And it's up to us to pursue these phenomena, the data, however we're involved in it, to find the truth. Because I don't think anyone's going to tell us. We all grew up our whole lives thinking someone else knew the answer. There's an expert out there. There's somebody. Well, folks, there isn't anybody but us. It's us figuring this out together, sharing stories like we heard today. And we're the ones that are going to pull this all together just by sharing our experiences and our stories. So basically, you know, it's about keeping the faith, and don't believe what you read in books, because not all of it, because it's just much bigger than that. I found this out. I mean, just like what Rich was saying, I think when I was in grad school, sure, Grover Krantz was upstairs, but he was kind of isolated, even just arguing that this was a great, you know, North American ape, rare ape. Just even arguing that caused him to get a lot of blowback. I could tell from talking to friends who knew him. So, you know, you just got to keep pushing for it, whether, you know, your family rejects you for it or not. Because in the end, wouldn't you rather really know what the truth is? Or, you know,
oh yeah.
Rich, you've made that decision, and that's, you know, it's inspiring. So thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Something else I want to say too is this is like, okay, once this thing touches you, because I've kind of told you about how it's like, and I think you realize it, it's like, this thing is like an octopus, and it's just like one suction cup touched you, right? And these legs are all out there everywhere. And it's like, once it realizes that it's going around planting seeds, and once it realizes that you're a conduit for it and that you'll listen, it's like, oh, I'm going to rattle you now. I'm going to send you this. I'm going to send you this. I'm going to send you this, right? Let's see what you would do with this, right? So, I mean, it's kind of, it just keeps going, right? Because once you start to expand your thinking like that, it's just, you know, stuff just pops in your head. And then, you know.
60 years. The conversation has existed for 60 years, right? As far as the flesh and blood answer. I'm generalizing, but now we're here, right? This is the time to bring forward these other conversations about these difficult issues. And the wind is at our back. You don't have to hide anymore. If you have the stranger issues, if you want to talk honestly and openly about your encounter, you can do it. You have the likes of Simeon Hine, you know, inviting Simeon Hine to a conversation like this is only going to benefit other voices to come forward in the future. This is the beginning. It's going to inspire the likes of Jeff Meldrum to talk about this openly. And Jeff, listen, maybe you watch this channel, maybe you don't, I don't know. But I know that you've had incredible stuff happen. I encourage you guys, all you people that have these incredible encounters out there, you don't have to hide anymore. You can talk about this openly. We're not here to celebrate and ridicule you. Listen, I was on your team for 5 years. I just got overwhelmed with the data set and the experiences myself. That's all we're trying to do. And I just want to join hands with you based upon the reality that this is much more nuanced. It's the gray area, it's the gray box, right? This is somehow coalesced with all these other issues here. This is a variable, it's not a constant. You guys know it's not relic hominid answers at the end of the day. There's something else happening here. And we just need to celebrate it. It's so much cooler than a monkey. That's it. That's really it. Let's just all talk about it. Show up at a conference. The next one we had here, we'll all have a beer. I'm a Coors Light guy. And we'll talk about the stranger stuff. Off the record, on the record, whatever you want. But regardless, it's time we do, because personally, I think the time is short. Let's just celebrate the last 15, 20 years, 30 years of your life, of what you invested in, talk about the data set, and lean in on the fact that we're all kind of coming to the same conclusion, and now we can do it. The ridicule factor is gone. These experiences are happening. They're much more complicated than we've talked about. They're variable. They're not a constant. It's not just a physical thing that we're talking about. And anyway, I could talk about this forever, even with all the other issues that are happening in the periphery with politics and all the other bullshit. This somehow still supersedes all that for me. And, you know, you have a window open with me. So for all the apers out there, I hope you reach out. I hope you watch this channel. Thank you for doing that. Thank you, Simeon. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Jill. Thank you, Brett, for bringing us all together. This is actually, listen, I've been at this for 20 years, Simeon. 20 freaking years, as long as Rich, right? Pretty much. And this is one of the coolest experiences I've had in 20 years, is sitting around a round table like this, talking about this. I was telling Brett like this is phenomenal. You guys have never seen anything like this, because it's all been filtered, right? You've been delivered a set of goods that is inauthentic. You've been filtered information from the gatekeepers. That's not what you have here. Like, we're asking questions, right? We're asking deeper questions. This is what Scripture asks us to do, to question the very nature of God. Okay, and this is what we're talking about here, the nature of something that is God-like. And so that's what I'm asking you to do. Dig deeper, ask the deeper questions, ask questions without fear. you know, courage is contagious. Rich was saying as such. So anyway, Jill.
So as always, thank you for tuning in on what Tope had to say.
Cheers.
Ask and you shall receive. Knock and the door will be open. We're all looking for the same answers. Let's work together. We all need to be working together.
Yeah.
We
Cheers.
all hold pieces of the puzzle. So let's come
Let's go.
together and
Boom.
share information. And on that note, they're all toasting, and I'm.
Cheers.
And, hey everybody, that's great.
Cheers.
Cheers to the audience. Thanks for watching.
Cheers the phone. There you go.
Okay. Thanks everybody. Have a good, safe weekend, and we'll see you real soon.